Let's transition and let's go to the Queen City, the Monday Night Football matchup, a rematch of Super Bowl 56. It's the 1-1 L.A Rams traveling to Cincinnati to take on the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are currently favored by 2.5 points. 8:15 is the scheduled kickoff at Paycor Stadium. The over-under for this matchup is 43.5 points. Right now, Joe Burrow's status is unknown for this game Monday nights. So that's where I want to start off on the show this afternoon as I preview this matchup. Obviously, with the Cincinnati Bengals, the biggest question for the Bengals is going to be the health of Joe Burrow. So far this season, Joe Burrow, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 304 passing yards. He's went 41 of 72, so he's completed only 56% of his passes. And he struggled. But the main reason why Joe Burrow has struggled is because of the calf injury that he's currently dealing with. I felt like in the second half of week 2, he got into a rhythm. And I thought he started to play better in the second half against the Ravens. But in the first, 6 quarters, the 4 quarters in the week 1 matchup against the Browns, and in the first half against the Ravens, Joe Burrow struggled. He didn't even have over 100 yards passing in week 2 at halftime. So he got into a rhythm in the second half, but he has not been the same since he suffered the calf injury earlier this season during the training camp. That's when he suffered the injury. And like I said on the show a few nights ago, I believe that the Bengals' approach was they wanted to start the season and they wanted to see if Burrow's calf was going to heal as the season goes along, and it's been the exact opposite. As a matter of fact, he's re-aggravated the injury, and unfortunately, they start off the season 0-2. Had they started off the season 1-1 or maybe even 2-0, then you could give Burrow some time to allow that calf to heal. But at 0-2, and you're in the AFC, and the Ravens already have a 2-game lead on you in the AFC North, you got to have Joe Burrow playing at a high level because you have to win games now. Their backup quarterback is Jake Browning, and if Joe Burrow has to miss significant time, the Cincinnati Bengals will miss the playoffs. If he doesn't play in this matchup against the Rams will beat the Bengals Monday night at Paycor Stadium, and they'll lose in week 4 to the Tennessee Titans. Now, they play the Cardinals, I believe, in week 5. They might be able to beat the Cardinals without Joe Burrow, but even that game would be a toss-up without the services of Joe Burrow. Jake Browning is not the answer. He's not the answer. So the Bengals this is a must-win for the Bengals. This is a must-win for the Cincinnati Bengals. And even despite his calf injury, Joe Burrow, for whatever reason, he struggles in weeks 1 and 2 during the regular season. In weeks 1 and 2, he's 1-7 in his career. All these other games, he's 23-12-1. So we know that Joe Burrow is proven. He's proven that he plays well in big games. And he's in his 3 years starting, the man got injured in his rookie season. Second year, he got the Bengals to the Super Bowl. Third year, they got to the AFC Championship game. And in college, Joe Burrow won a Heisman Trophy, 60 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Joe Burrow is a great young quarterback in the NFL. But if Joe Burrow is not healthy, the Cincinnati Bengals will not be contenders, not only in the AFC, but they won't even be contenders in the AFC North. And this will be a down year for the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, something that no one's talking about is that Bengals defense has not been good this year. They haven't been very good. They've given up over 20 plus points to the Browns and the Ravens, 2 AFC North division opponents. So they have to get better defensively. Up front, you got Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, 2 good pass rushers. You still got DJ Reader, BJ Hill as well. At linebacker, they got one of the most underrated linebackers in the NFL in Logan Wilson. You still got Jermaine Pratt. Now in their secondary, that's where they had to replace Jesse Bates and Von Bell. They replaced Bates and Bell with Nick Scott and Dax Hill. But I thought last week Lamar Jackson, he carved up that Bengals secondary. So they got to get better defensively. They have to get better defensively. And overall, even though their defense has to be better, their offense is the strength of the team. And so far this year, Jamar Chase, he's been quiet. 10 receptions, no touchdowns, only 70 receiving yards in the first 2 games. Joe Mixon, 26 carries, 115 rushing yards, averaging over 4 yards per carry. I think they need to run the football more with Joe Mixon. You don't want Joe Burrow having to drop back to pass over 40 times per game. Run the football more with Joe Mixon. Up front, you got a decent offensive line. You got Ted Karras. You got Alex Kappa, Cardell Volson. They signed Orlando Brown in free agency. You got Jonah Williams at right tackle. So they got a pretty decent offensive line. They need to run the football more. Don't have Joe Burrow drop it back to pass over 40 times per game. But the problem is, in the first 2 weeks of the season, they have trailed on the scoreboard. The Browns, they were up on the Bengals in week 1, and the Ravens controlled most of that game in week 2. So they got to try to get out to a lead and run the football more and have a balanced attack offensively. But it's all about how healthy is Joe Burrow going to be moving forward. Because if Joe Burrow's not healthy and you lose 1 or 2 more games and you're 0-4, if the Bengals start the season off 0-4 and Burrow's playing, I believe that the Cincinnati Bengals organization needs to seriously consider sitting Joe Burrow the rest of the season. At 0-4, you're not making the playoffs. You're not making the playoffs at 0-4. In the AFC North alone, you got the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, they're already 2-0. They got the Colts this week. They'll be 3-0 by the end of week 3. You still got the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we know how elite that defense is. They got Mike Tomlin as well. In the AFC West, you still got Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. At some point, if the Chargers decide to fire Brandon Staley, you expect the Chargers to be better. In the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins, they have an elite offense with Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And that Bills still got Josh Allen as well. In the AFC South, you got the Jacksonville Jaguars. So in the AFC, it's stacked. The AFC is stacked. And so if you start off the season 0-3, 0-4, that's too much to overcome to make the playoffs if you are the Cincinnati Bengals. And if you get to 0-3, 0-4, they seriously have to consider sitting Joe Burrow out and having him healthy for the 2024 season. Now, when it comes to the L.A. Rams, although they're 1-1, the Rams have played well in their first 2 games. In week 1, they upset the Seattle Seahawks. That was a game where I was shocked. They beat the Seattle Seahawks 30-13. In that game, Matthew Stafford had over 300 yards passing, went 24 of 38. Matthew Stafford outplayed Geno Smith, and they also got some great production from Tutu Atwell in that matchup. He had 6 receptions, 119 receiving yards. So they did a great job in week 1 against the Seahawks. Now, in week 2, they went up against the 49ers. They lost that game 30-23. But the 49ers are the best team in pro football. They're the best team in pro football. And even in that game, I thought the Rams played well, especially in the first half. In the first half, the game was tied at half, 17-17. So that's the NFC West battle. Kyle Shanahan versus Sean McVay. Niners versus Rams, 2 teams who are very familiar with one another. And I thought the Rams competed in the first half of that game. Now, obviously, in the second half, the Niners outscored the Rams 13-6, but they were competitive in that game. They were competitive in that game overall, and they had over 350 total yards of offense, and they've been doing this without Cooper Kupp. That's what's impressed me. No Cooper Kupp, and the L.A. Rams have really been impressive. They really, really have. Tutu Atwell has contributed. Puka Nakai also as well. That man, the receiver for the Rams last week that led them in receptions, his name is hard to pronounce, but it's Nakwa, 15 receptions, 147 receiving yards. So he's proved that he could be a number 2 receiver in this Rams offense. So once they get Cooper Kupp back, the Rams could be contenders in the NFC. They could be. I don't expect them to win the NFC West, but they could be contenders in the NFC overall and compete for a wild card spot. And the thing is with the Rams, if Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Aaron Donald are all healthy, you expect the Rams to be competitive. Sean McVay is a proven NFL head coach. He's already won the Super Bowl in his career, a tremendous play caller as well. So if the Rams have a healthy Stafford, Aaron Donald, and if Cooper Kupp can come back and be healthy for the remainder of the season, the Rams could be contenders in the NFC, and I was wrong about the Rams. I was completely wrong. I had the Rams finishing, I think, like 6-11, maybe even 7-10 to start the season. I mean, throughout the entire season, rather. And I didn't have them as a playoff team, but they impressed me with that Week 1 performance against the Seahawks and then even against the 49ers in Week 2. Those are 2 NFC West division foes, and they played well against those 2 teams. But with all that being said, I'm rolling with the L.A Rams to beat the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. I'm going Rams 24, Bengals 17.